Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host Louis Sung, and today I went ahead and I went into the OnlyFins Discord server, which is hosted by the 3 Yards Per Carry crew, Alfredo Arteaga, Chris Kaufman, and Simon Clancy. For anybody who does not know what goes on in there, all it takes is $3 a month to get some of the best Dolphins talk in the world as far as I'm concerned. I went ahead and I asked the people in there, what would you like me to talk about for this show? And they gave me a mishmash of different topics for us to talk about, so I'm going to go over as many of them as I possibly can. So we'll get into all that, but before we get into it, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, the WNBA, one of each league. It's up to you to decide. All you have to do is choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares. Today happens to be Taco Tuesday, so keep an eye out for discounted picks throughout the day. There are also Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some of these topics. So one of the things that they wanted me to talk about really quickly was what are some of the undrafted free agents to get excited about. Now, the fact that Jarrett Horst is no longer on the roster is actually a little bit frustrating to me. Now, he hasn't been picked up by anybody, but DJ Schaeff, who was of the Miami Hurricanes, and he got waived by the Dolphins when they went ahead and decided to sign Isaiah Wynn and Cedric Ogbuehi. Instead, he got claimed by the Green Bay Packers, which you may start to scratch your head and think, oh, maybe there was something there after all. But that's just an assumption based on the fact it's the Packers. They seem to be able to create really good offensive linemen in the same vein as the New England Patriots. That didn't happen with Isaiah Wynn, but that might have been more of an injury problem. We shall see when he shows up in Miami with pads on. Now, what we're going to talk about now is who actually is still on the roster. Are there any undrafted free agents that I could look at and say, you know what, there might be something there? First and foremost, I'll go ahead and I'll mention Randy Charlton, who was out of Mississippi State. So Charlton started out at UCF, and then he eventually went over to Mississippi State. He was actually a 5-year college player. Now, what caught my attention with Randy Charlton, obviously there was this one story back on May 24th where he basically broke the tackling sled during drills in OTAs. So we obviously know that he's got a good motor. We obviously know that there's something there as far as his effort. He's definitely willing to give it 110% at every given snap. And as an undrafted free agent, that makes sense. He knows that he has to really stand out if he wants to end up making the team. He's not going to be given anything. He's got a lot of really good players that he has to compete with who are basically locks to make the roster. Guys like Emmanuel Ogbah, for one. He's a very good player that he's making a lot of money, and he's expected to be very useful in the coming season. There are other guys there as well. Raekwon Davis, he's going to make the roster. Zach Sealer is obviously going to make the roster. Christian Wilkins is on the verge of signing a new contract whenever that ends up happening. He doesn't seem all that concerned about it. He thinks eventually he will get one, and the Dolphins would be wise to give him one, by the way, in my humble opinion. As far as other defensive ends, though, I mean, there aren't really a whole lot of just pure defensive linemen available. The Dolphins are swarmed with edge players, though. They've got Andrew Van Ginkel, who is now being worked inside because Vic Fangio wants him there. You obviously have guys like Malik Reed, who they went ahead and signed as another edge player. You've got Jalen Phillips. You've got Bradley Chubb. You've got all sorts of really good players that are going to be on that defensive line, but they're all going to be used in different ways. So there is a slot for somebody like a Randy Charlton as a pure defensive end because somebody has to be the backup to Emmanuel Ogbah. Now, if Vic Fangio decides that he wants to make it so that Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer play more of a defensive end type role instead of playing like pure defensive tackle, and they maybe let someone like Raekwon Davis do that job, then Charlton might be in a little bit of a sticky situation. So his best bet at this point is to, yes, keep pushing, keep fighting, keep showing that you have something to offer here. His scouting reports read that he has really good hands. He's got good violence tendencies when he's disengaging from players. He's instinctive. The problem is that he doesn't have elite athletic traits. So he doesn't have elite strength, he doesn't have elite speed, but he does have very good weight for this draft class. So for what his position is, he weighs very well. So hopefully he'll be able to make do with that, maybe use some of that extra weight to be able to just kind of push his way through. We will see what happens with him, but I think there might be something there. You don't just break the tackling sled and then not get some kind of notice, because other people will notice that. So that's one guy that I think might be able to make a little bit of an impact. Another player to look at would be, I think this is how you say his name, would be Alama Leviave. So as an undrafted center, basically, he might have something to offer on the offensive line. And this is only because, again, I always have to read these scouting reports because I don't really have a whole lot to offer as far as like actual draft discussion. I have to actually look at these guys play, so I don't have that kind of time at the moment. So all I can do is just kind of look at it and see exactly what it is that he does. So he has really good effort. Again, a very high motor, and it's that kind of motor, that kind of just energy, that kind of desire to play and be the best that you can be. Like, you would think that that comes without saying, but a lot of players, it really doesn't. And when you're an undrafted free agent, you have to show that more than anything else, because usually if you're undrafted, it's because you don't really bring anything elite to the table other than just your raw effort. But sometimes that raw effort is enough to get you noticed, and then you can work on everything else after the fact. So for Alama Leviave, and I am assuming that's how you say his name. I don't know if that's how you say his name anyway. But he was a 2-year starter. He had a lot of special teams experience, but he's short. He doesn't have a whole lot of size to him. So everything that he does, he has to do just from being hard work and knowing that he has to be perfect, basically, with his technique. But with this offensive line in the state that it is, if he can manage to be maybe Connor Williams' backup, that would already be something fantastic, because heaven forbid something happened to Connor Williams. We already know the offensive line is going to be in flux, because if Liam Eichenberg ends up being the starter at left guard, you know that that's not going to be pretty. If Robert Jones ends up getting the job at left guard, we've seen that too, and I'm not exactly thrilled with it. I'm willing to give him more of a benefit of the doubt at this point, but who knows? Maybe, again, Butch Barry manages to pull something incredible out of his hat. I don't know what this man is going to do or not. And, of course, the whole Austin Jackson thing. The offensive line right now has 3 good offensive linemen on it. Teron Armstead, who says that he's working to play the entire season, which would be fantastic if he did. I'm not holding my breath on that. You have Robert Hunt, who is a legitimate Pro Bowl guard when he's at right guard. And, of course, you have Connor Williams at center. If any of those 3 guys end up getting hurt for whatever reason, the depth at that position is not good. And it could be very detrimental to what the Dolphins want to accomplish this season on offense. So if this guy, Alama Leviave, can just prove that he's good enough to be able to be a backup, I'm very happy with that, and I think that that would be the best thing for the Dolphins at this point, is for somebody to show up and say, hey, you kind of overlooked me, let me show you what I can do. Is he the guy? If he works hard enough, maybe you can be, because there are a lot of guys who don't have elite speed, who don't have elite strength, who don't have elite anything, athletically speaking, but they end up working out just great. Kader Kohu, Nick Needham, undrafted guys who ended up becoming really good players. So hopefully on the offensive line, maybe Chris Greer finally got lucky on one. And of course, lastly, if we're going to be talking about undrafted free agents, this one's a little bit cheating. I may understand that, but Michael Turk, as far as I'm concerned, he's going to be the punter for the Miami Dolphins. I talked about him already once before. He's got a really strong leg. His uncle is Matt Turk, who was a longtime Dolphins punter, so he already has the pedigree. As far as I'm concerned, Michael Turk is going to make Jake Bailey not have a job, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I would much rather see the last name Turk on the punter's uniform than Jake Bailey. This is just something about having a Turk back there that just makes me feel like that the special teams unit is in good hands. Now, here's going to be the next topic that we're going to talk about here. So, one of the things that was asked was, what kind of free agents should the Dolphins be targeting after June 1st? Because, again, as a reminder for everybody, the Miami Dolphins are going to be getting about $13 million in cap space to play with once Byron Jones' money actually becomes available. That happens right after June 1st. So, now, who are they going to actually be targeting? And rather, who should they be targeting? So, as a revisitation of everything we talked about during the last few shows, my number one free agent target for after June 1st is obviously going to be Dalvin Cook. And I've already discussed all the reasons why. Just yesterday, I had my good friend Chad Ronabaum. He was able to come on, and Chad basically said that he thinks that Dalvin Cook being on the Miami Dolphins offense would be a good thing, but it's a question of, is he willing to take the amount of money that the Dolphins would be willing to offer him at this point, which cannot be a whole lot more than maybe like $5 million tops with how the market is going to be playing out. Because right now, he's making like 10. He's going to be counting for $10 million against the Minnesota Vikings cap, which is why they're going to be cutting him in the first place. By the way, I say 10 million just as a generic number. I don't know the exact numbers. I'd have to look it up. But he's going to be costing a lot against their cap, which is why they want to get rid of him in the first place. But no team is willing to take on the contract that he has. So the Vikings' best shot at this point is to cut him as a post-June 1st designation. They're going to be getting that money after the fact. Dalvin Cook will be a free agent, and he will get to choose where he wants to go. I personally believe that he wants to come to Miami above everywhere else, and he may just be willing to take a smaller deal just to come to Miami. So let's say that about $5 million of their June 1st money ends up going to Dalvin Cook. Now, the next guy that I would be looking at, and this is something that I discussed during a Pulse of Fins Nation show that I had with Ron Caniff, one of the guys that I would really love to go ahead and bring in, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, would be Ndamukong Suh. Now, the thing with Ndamukong Suh is I don't think that he will sign after June 1st. I think that he's going to wait until the season begins, and he's going to look and weigh his options, because there are going to be teams that are going to be looking for defensive tackle help as the season drags on. Ndamukong Suh did not join the Philadelphia Eagles until well into the season. So he's probably going to be looking to skip all of training camp. He's probably not interested in that. But would he come back to Miami? I think that he has a certain level of respect for Steve Ross because he helped to teach him business. I think that as basically a hired assassin, Ndamukong Suh can still be a fantastic role player, I think. He's not the superstar he once was. Obviously, he's in his late 30s. Those days are long gone. But what can Ndamukong Suh do as part of a rotation? I think he would be a fantastic fit for the Vic Fangio defense. He could rotate in and out with Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins, and whenever they need a breather, you have Ndamukong Suh coming off the bench. Last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, he signed a 1-year, $2 million contract. 1 year for $2 million. And that 1 year is more like a half a year, but I digress. You get Ndamukong Suh for $2 million, I am all for that, and I can go ahead and wait until later on in the season. I would go ahead and say, hey, we would like to bring you in. He'll probably say, okay, yeah, call me back in about 2 months, and we'll talk then. And you know what? I will call him back in 2 months, because if the Dolphins are going to be pushing for another Super Bowl run, I would absolutely be keeping him on the radar, because if the Eagles are willing to sign him, and they all made it to the Super Bowl, they didn't win, but that's a different story. I digress. I think Ndamukong Suh would be a fantastic fit to be brought in as a role player in this defense. Now we're going to go ahead and squeeze in one last topic here. That topic was regarding what kind of ways can the Dolphins use to improve the run offense. Now, this is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I really feel like that this is just going to be the best thing the Dolphins can do at this point. The best thing that the Miami Dolphins can do to improve the run offense is to just stay dedicated to running the ball, man. We kept talking about Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. They easily could have each hit 1,000 yards if the Miami Dolphins had stayed dedicated to running the football and not getting all pass happy with Tua Tagovailoa. So where does this fit in with the whole Dalvin Cook discussion? Well, again, my point was always that Dalvin Cook brings something to the offense that Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and even Devon Achane cannot do, at least not yet in Achane's case. Dalvin Cook brings a reputation. He brings a level of respect that defensive coordinators have to plan for. Defensive coordinators are not looking at Mostert and Wilson and maybe not Achane yet as somebody that, you know what, this guy can absolutely wreck us if we let him, because those are just not what they're good for anymore. So Dalvin Cook, on the other hand, again, ever since 2019, injured or not, he has run for at least 1,000 yards rushing, and he is only going to be 28 in August. He is not an old man yet. He is not at the tail end of his career yet. I refuse to believe that sort of thing, because once you hit, like, Raheem Mostert is 31. And the Dolphins just re-signed him back. And we are looking at him as being the starter unless we are going to go ahead and say, no, Devon Achane is the starter. He's going to be the everything running back. If the Dolphins end up doing that, then kudos to them for finding Devon Achane, because he probably should have earned it by then. I think that if the Dolphins don't go and get Dalvin Cook, then Raheem Mostert is going to get first dibs on those snaps, at least to start the season. But the best thing the Dolphins can do to improve the run offense is just don't stop running the football. Even when it was working, they still went to the pass because the pass was just that much more impressive. Huge, massive chunk plays. And I get it. It was very exciting to watch. Very satisfying to see defenses just back on their heels, not able to stop Tua. But eventually they did, and the running game was not able to pick up the slack because they had not gotten enough reps in. They need to stay consistent, and Mike McDaniel has promised to do just that. So that's my prognosis. That's my prescription. Just keep running the ball and everything will work out just fine with the running of the football. So that's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate all the different topics that you gave me to talk about. If you have not already done so, make sure you go to check out You Break Wheel Fix. If you have any kind of wheel needs, or if you just want to give your ride a new look, reach out to Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbreakwheelfix.com. And of course, remember, on prizepicks.com today is Taco Tuesday, so make sure you use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. So they will give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with. So go right now and go sign up, because Taco Tuesday is coming and there's going to be a lot of discounted picks for you to choose from. So once again, that's going to be it for this show, and we will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.